Oh, cheers.
Hello and welcome to the Nita and Tosh show. These are the business Q&A sessions, and Tosh and I are here every week at 11. So for our regulars, welcome back. And I believe we have some new attendees today, so welcome. Welcome, everyone. Hi, Tosh. How are you doing?
Hi, good meeting yourself.
Yeah, really good, thanks. I see you got a cup of tea there.
Well, you know, it is, you know, we always have a little brew before we get cracking. Oh, your picture's cleared up a bit. It was a bit dodgy before, but it's clearing up a bit now.
Good. Virgin Media have just given me a new Wi-Fi cable, so let's hope it does the trick. But whilst everyone's settling in the room, let's do a bit of housekeeping. So we've got everyone for about 30 to 40 minutes today. We try to keep it succinct. We know how valuable everyone's time is, and we want to make this time really useful to them. As always, we have a chat box on the right because this is an interactive session. The most useful sessions are those where you get your questions answered and you can go back to your work and you can implement those solutions straight away. So that's what these sessions are about.
It's always about practical things. They should be things that you're dealing with right now. You know, Misha and the team, in fact, they contact you guys regularly. And if you haven't been contacted, us, then reach out to find out what, you know, put our finger on the pulse, find out what actually matters to you. What is it that we can do, or how can we use our expertise to help you through actual difficulties that you're having? So the topics are different every single week. And, you know, if you've been here before, you know. If you don't know, there's a chat box on the right. What we promise is to answer every single question that you put to us throughout this 30, 40-minute session. And if somehow we run out of time, which happens once in a blue moon, then we will do a follow-up video to make sure that everything is answered, or call us. You know, we're available. Pick up the phone, talk to us. We will definitely talk to you about whatever situation you're dealing with live, in a call afterwards to deal with whatever problems you've got, basically.
Indeed, and do put what you'd like us to cover as well, because we often make those subjects of the future. So we can spend the whole session on challenges for you. And actually, that's how today's session has come about. So just looking at the list of topics we're going to cover today, we are covering the 3 most common challenges within the workplace. And we've established that through engaging with our business community, through talking to other people in our network, and through posts and surveys and things like that. So currently, managing difficult conversations in the workplace is an issue. Talking to people about coming back from work, coming back from home, getting people back in the office, keeping people engaged. So that's the first thing we're going to cover, managing difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Number 2, we're going to talk about the lack of training within the workplace and how that's impacting organizations. So it's been one of those funny years where people are almost a little bit on hold. They're not, but they are. And what's been missed, what's been missed by not investing in your people? We're going to talk about that. And we're actually going to talk about some of the training that we're delivering out to our business community at the moment, and something that might be of use to you as well. And we're doing that at a really cost-effective rate, because we understand our clients really need to watch every pound of investment, but investing in your people is so key. And then the third area we're going to cover today is all around how to correct low motivation, because we're a year into this pandemic. I mean, motivation is a challenge at the best of times, making sure everyone is facing in the same direction, feeling lifted and full of energy, and feeling satisfied with their job, the nirvana of a team. But in the pandemic, that's been even harder.
Job satisfaction as well. They're two sides of the same coin. What do you do when you don't have motivation? You don't get up every day and go zing. It's got to be, you've got to have the right disciplines in place if the motivation isn't there, or what do you need to do to create it? But yeah, absolutely. These are all things that clients have said to us one way or another, and we thought we might be able to share these tips with you today.
Yeah. So just before we start talking about our first topic, I wanted to mention that we have a poll on the right here. And please, if you haven't had a chance to contribute, please do. So the question we're asking you today is, what is your most important people strategy in 2021? And how do you cover... Oh, we've got 2 parts for that. Sorry, it is the first part. What is your most important people strategy in 2021? The first one is diversity and inclusion. The second one is training and upskilling. And the third is mental health and well-being. And out and out mental health and well-being is at 70%. Somebody's just clicked on diversity and inclusion because that's pushed right up to 2nd place. And then training and upskilling is 3rd. So thank you for your insight into what's going on in your world and what's important to you. If you haven't contributed to that, please do, and then we'll publish the results at the end.
That's really consistent for the last 12 months or so, actually. Mental health, well-being. It's been the buzzwords, or the wrong phrase, perhaps. But that's certainly what a lot of people have been dealing with, right? The stress of the situation, whether it's COVID issues or working from home or isolation or whatever issues there are. That's been a big topic over the last 12 months.
Yeah, it's tough, and actually it feeds into everything else, doesn't it? If people are anxious about something at work, then that conversation is going to be much harder, and often people don't open up on that. So we'll definitely be covering that as one of our topics of the future as well. But shall we dig into how to manage difficult conversations in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Mita, look, there's loads of information out there. It's on the internet. People can Google it. How do I do this? How do I do that? So the knowledge is not the issue. It's the execution that's the issue. So, the number one problem that most of my clients, I mean, they might ask you about certain things, about the law and certain aspects, but they might know what to do, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to say it. How do you execute what you want? If you're looking to fire somebody, what do you say? How do you say it? When do you say it? So it's almost, you have to give them almost like a script, or at least some principles to understand, how do I get the outcomes you're looking for?
And you know what? I agree with that completely. I think we can all read from a textbook. It's about making people feel comfortable so they can be honest with you. It's about giving people the trust and confidence to know that they can come to you well before the problem has become costly, time impactful, and impactful on other people in your organization. And I think it's about you as an employer, and this is where Tosh and I are such great two sides of the coin, is to be able to uphold your business objectives and your rules and all the rest of it, but also to be personable, to be approachable, and to try and create a win-win situation, which can't always, as you say, Tosh, sometimes that's it, and the person has to accept it. But usually there is a middle ground that can be built on your favorite word, Tosh, reasonableness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But when we're talking about difficult conversations, it might not be to reach a resolution. It might be a difficult conversation for an outcome. So, for example, suppose I want to, suppose you have a performance, I have a performance issue with you, Mita, as my employee, and I have a discussion with the outcome might be either you're going to take it on board, or the outcome might be you don't agree.
Yeah.
So either way, it's managing that difficult conversation to a point to understand what you're going to do with it, whichever way that tree branches out. And I wanted to talk about that structure so that you can apply it to whether it's dealing with the disciplinary, dealing with the grievance, dealing with somebody who's coming to work late, dealing with the performance issue. The structure is always the same, and it's always backwards. You start with the end in mind.
Okay, so I'm going to put to you, before we go into this structure, currently there's a lot of questions coming up around where people are going to work, how their week is going to be structured going forward, people having to do the work of two because of this restructure of organizations due to redundancies, furloughs, so on and so forth. Can this structure that we're going to be talking about in this part of our session cover everything? Can it be a blueprint? Okay,
I'll tell you why. Because sometimes people ask me, am I a specialist in a certain industry? I don't know, let's say an airline industry or something. I have an airline client, but let's say I don't. Yeah. And I will say, well, what difference does it make? Because the law is going to apply to all of those things, regardless of what it is. I mean, it might be useful to have a bit of insight in that, but you can learn those things, the mechanics of how things work, or the culture. So it's the same thing here. It's always about having some key principles in mind and then applying those principles to whatever the situation is. As I say, performance, disciplinary, it's a difficult conversation. So I was saying to you, the structure is, I want you to look at it a bit like, when you see those a maze and you want to know how to get to the middle, you know what the cheat is, don't you?
Yeah, you start from the middle.
You go to the middle. Exactly. So what if if you're having the conversation, whether it's business or whether it's personal, there's a bit of an echo. Can you hear it?
No, I'm okay.
Bear with me 2 seconds. It might be one thing at my end. Bear with me 1 second.
Okay. Josh putting me on the spot and just leaving me to hold forward. That's absolutely fine.
Literally a second.
Okay.
So I think when you look at the given situation, what is the outcome you're looking for? So let me give you a common difficult situation. It's talking about poor performance, right? So understand at the very beginning, what is the outcome you're looking for? You're looking to either agree things with that employee for them to step up and take certain actions to then improve, or if they're not taking it on board, we might have to take more formal action about it. Remember what formal action isn't punishment. It's where it's not been made clear enough to the employee what is or isn't acceptable. So we have to take formal steps to make that clear to them, right?
Yeah.
So you go backwards. So you know already the outcomes you're getting to. You want to get to the outcomes of agreed steps on how to hit those targets, what you need to do and so forth. So then go back a step. Before we get to those agreed outcomes, what needs to happen? We need to understand from the employee, what is the issue? We need to find out why they're not meeting those objectives. Let's go back one step further to that. You need to let the employee know what is the issue. We're not making any accusations, or we're not making any judgments yet. But if it's as simple as your target is this and you're not meeting those targets, what's happening? What are you doing? And then we can find out what they need to do and agree steps, right?
Yeah, so this is where I would come in to say that with any outcome-led conversation, I think for a lot of organizations and a lot of people who are managing, they don't want to necessarily go in with the impression that they've already thought about what the outcome is. I think that what's really important for any manager is to make sure that there's clarity on what expectations are, whether it's job performance, whether it's location, whether it's hours work, whatever, how we engage. It's about having the blueprint of what exceptional looks like, what good looks like, what unacceptable looks like right from the start. And that is something that I think that, yes, I'm talking a little bit more about preempting and preventing difficult conversations, but to improve your ability to manage a difficult conversation, it's good to have your roadmap and a pre-existing agreement of what good looks like. Could be a job description, could be a handbook, could be a policy.
But we're human, which means that we have a predetermined decision. But just understand that the decision predetermined means I know what I want to do. That doesn't mean I'm not unreasonable to then adapt that according to how the conversation goes. I've got to go in with something. I've got to go in with something in mind. It's a little bit like people saying there's no right or wrong. Well, there is. According to what is relevant to you at that particular time, you might adapt what you believe is right or wrong to that. But it's what is right or wrong that motivates you in the first place. So what I'm saying is the structure has to begin with the end in mind. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, as odd as that might sound. So if you're going to go in there and just start attacking somebody and saying how bad they are with the performance without trying to understand where they're coming from, it's just not going to be receptive. And it makes sense that you think about it from the recipient's point of view. What is more likely to get the outcome that you want? Is it you going rah, 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 or is it you making it clear in stages? Maybe even get them to understand it. Well, look, you accept that you haven't hit your target, right? Yes, but you know what? It's not my fault. It's outside influences. Well, okay. Well, how come Bob, Rita, and Sue are hitting their targets then? What are they doing that you're not? I don't know. Well, I do know. It's these things. And you maybe need to make these number of calls, which will result in these kind of activities, which result in these number of appointments. You know, whatever the circumstances are. It's not just saying you're doing it wrong. It's saying what we expect them to do, how we expect them to do it, and why.
Yeah, it's that clarity again. I agree. And when you're in that meeting, talking about the point of view of the benefit of the individual and therefore the organization, it's important that people feel that it's going to benefit them in the long run to improve what you're bringing up for them. Tosh, we could do a whole session on this. We're already sort of nearly halfway through. So shall we move forward?
Before we do move on, I think it's quite an important one, Meeta, because it's probably the number one issue that a lot of companies have. So before we do move on to the other ones, I just wanted to very quickly put something to you on the spot and see in terms of, can you think of an example? Because I'm pretty sure, we talk a lot about our day-to-day stuff just because it relates to what our audience are also feeling and doing. Have you had an experience of a difficult conversation you can think of that perhaps you think, actually, yeah, these are the kind of problems I have. And maybe we can, again, address that or tell us how you addressed it.
Well, I mean, God, how long is a piece of string? I've been in business for 20 odd years. And yeah, of course, we're always going to have challenging, difficult conversations, whether they're about personnel, whether they're about performance, whether they're about communication or, some sort of team engagement. I think what's most important is taking the time to listen. And rather than going into a meeting with assumptions, it's going into a meeting with a set of questions so that you can truly understand the whys of that person's behavior, where they are at that time, and perhaps why they are, responding in the way they're responding. So ask questions. Secondly, you don't have to come up with all the answers in the meeting. You can go away and take time to think. I think that's really important. And it's a really good way of allowing time to do its job, which is for people to catch up with where they are. So both the employee you're dealing with and you taking time to reflect and absorb. And actually, when you revisit things, usually people then start to trust in the process and they come in a collaborative mindset rather than a battle mindset. And that's always going to help.
I'm going to chuck a little spanner in the works, which is also that in my experience, whilst I'm prepared to listen and try and figure out the way, I will also allow that indulgence only so far. Because my experience also is where you are overly understanding of a situation. It's a little bit like children. If you don't have boundaries to a certain extent, they kind of go unruly. Whereas if there are clear boundaries of what's expected, because actually as a business owner, you should know what's right and wrong. You can understand it to an extent, and then either they're on board or they're not.
Well, understanding it doesn't change your parameters of what's right and wrong. Understanding it helps you see the gap between where they think they are and where they need to be. And then you can establish what the solution is to either carry them forward to success or agree to part ways if it's performance, for example.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, you're and that's what we're talking about. Clarity of what good looks like, boundaries of what the business expects, and agreeing a culture by which everyone conducts themselves, for me, are the three, the basis of a good working environment, and then can hopefully ensure that organizations and people don't have to have as many difficult conversations.
The idea is be firm and fair. That's generally the way you're not going to go wrong, even if you don't know anything about employment law. Firm and fair. What does fair mean? It means being reasonable. What can you justify as the reason for taking those actions? So I just wanted to have that.
Well, you know what? Thank you, Tosh. And it leads us really forward into the next part of our session today, which is all around training and what happens when there's a lack of training and investing in your people in the workplace. Because actually, sometimes an employer has a set of expectations, but they don't have the tool. They haven't given the person the tools to deliver. And
why?
Tell me.
Well, because they're new. And what if they leave? And if I invest all that time and money and invest in training and all those sorts of things, well, imagine if you don't. What happens when you don't is you're stuck with it. That's a lot of the reasons why a lot of people don't do it early. They want to make sure that person is the right fit. How long does that take? I don't know.
Yeah, and absolutely what's important is when you're interviewing people, and this is why I think it starts right at the beginning when you think about who you want in your world, is have your set of skills, have your set of competencies, have your set of values and behaviors, and measure them and then score them. And the ones that are the lowest, make that the first bit of training that you do, and tell them, listen, you scored really great in these places, but these areas were more challenging. So we're going to make this your first element of training. After that, we're going to have a 3-month review. And you know what? Training doesn't have to be expensive. Again, we do pre-recorded videos that our clients can have on file that their employees can access at any time. Really cost effective, something like £20 a month per person. On the other hand, you can have somebody come in and train your team for thousands of pounds a day. The range of training and upskilling doesn't have to be ding, 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 lots of money. But I tell you what, here are some stats, Tosh, that are pretty crazy. 50% of people say that they can decide for themselves what courses they take. So that's without consultation with their manager. They're given a budget and they decide for themselves. Now, on one hand, I think personal development is good, but surely training should give an ROI, or at least an element of the training should give an ROI to the business as well. Upskilling the person to deliver that.
In autonomy, where people should make those decisions, but not without some consultation. Because you know what? There's a difference between the owner that makes decisions for the business and an employee that will do a different role. I have invested in all my lawyers to be better lawyers than me. Yeah. Pointless not having worse lawyers than me. I appreciate you might train them to a certain extent, but either way, you invest with them so that they can be the best that they can be for the client. But they are not the best decision makers in the business. They're in the business, maybe in the legal industry, but not necessarily for the business, and that's a different thing.
Yeah, and I've got a couple more stats that I think are really important for employers to know, is that 1/3 of employees don't feel that their employers provide them with enough opportunities, develop skills. So that's something to think about. And it's actually the top 3 factor of employee engagement in your organization. So when you think about the cost of not investing in your people and not training them, with all that time you've taken, all the money you've spent with recruitment consultancies, bringing people in and getting them on board, your attrition rate will be 1/3 more if you're not thinking about training and upskilling and developing them. So these stats for me, these stats for me were actually pretty mind-blowing. We work in the training space. We've actually evolved that a lot in this time because, organizations have had to restructure, but the people they've got, they want to make sure that they've got the right tools to deliver. But ultimately, if they're not investing in their people now, when the market improves, people will walk. So if there are people that you want in your world, sit with them, do the reviews, establish the skills gaps based on where they are and what they need to achieve, and talk to us about what that looks like.
I'm tripping up a little bit into our third topic, but I'm not going to. I'll pull it back, which is absolutely.
I mean, it's always linked, isn't it?
Sorry, say again?
No, I was saying it's always linked, isn't it? I mean, all of these.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about why it is that people are in work in the first place, yes, money is a factor, but generally, you know, what's the definition of happiness? In a word, it's progress. So what does that mean? You know, that means constant and never-ending improvement to become better or to do more. You know, maybe if lawyers, we want to be the partner in that firm, or whatever it is that motivates you. But it is that in development that is kind of key. Yeah,
and one of the things that is so key at the moment is mental well-being, and what we're doing a lot at the moment, and the offer that I'm going to send out to everyone afterwards is about remote working and the success of remote working. And actually, this is going to evolve not in just to one location working, which is remote, but a hybrid approach to remote working. And this is going to actually bring a whole set of new challenges to your organization, if that's what you're considering, which it seems like most businesses are. So it's all very well having all of your people at home or all of your people in the office. But what happens when half are in, half are out? Some people really choose not to go in very much. Others want to be in all the time. And all of a sudden, your cultural alignment starts to shift. Communication starts to be impacted. So it's really important that you are continually training what good looks like, set the standards for what your expectations are on structure of your organization, and think about what is going to help your people, not just in terms of skills for their role, but things like time management, things like communication, things like building resilience. And I'm looking down at my list here of what we've been delivering, like our top courses that we've been delivering at the moment, helping people to be good managers. And when managers have half the team in and half the team out, how are they going to get that balance? So when you've trained people and you've all agreed on what good looks like, all of a sudden you have a code of conduct and you have a code of expectation that wherever they are, we all agree that this is how we're going to conduct ourselves. So I think it's really important to think about, you know, what skills and what support your people need.
Can you be specific? So you've got some training programs at the moment that are going out to employers, and it would be really good to know, you know, if I'm sitting here watching this, what is the training or I mean, you'll know this because your clients are calling you about this. What is the headache or the pain that I'm having that I think, I need your help with training on that? Can you talk specifically about maybe the top 2 types of training programs that employers use at the moment with you? And then people have, I don't know, I'd like to know the specifics.
Absolutely. So I never want to turn this into a sales pitch. We've been doing it for a year and we've never said that we're here to make money from our sessions. We're here to add value. But I think it is important for our audience to not feel alone in their problems. I think that's one of the benefits of our webinars, and also to know that there is a solution to the problems that are there. And what we've been delivering in 2021, which is really popular, are 1 to 2 hour, what we call bite-sized training sessions, done on Zoom, done in a group of up to 10, because what that then creates is it creates camaraderie between people that they all want to achieve something. It reconnects people. So many businesses are working and people are working individually, but they haven't seen each other. Sometimes in training sessions, people will say hello to each other. They haven't seen each other or spoken for months. And it's crazy to think of an organization not having that collaboration vibe. So what would I say are the 2 biggest areas? I would say number one, I would say, is definitely mental health. And that is then linked with resilience. It's linked with time management.
What does that mean? So you mean, so as
mental health.
And I'm worrying about the mental health of my staff, so I pick up the phone to you, and then you have a session with my staff and me. Is that what that means?
Oh, you're asking me about the topic. You're asking about the infrastructure of it. Yes. So
on the course, what makes me better off as a result? That's the specific I would want to know.
Yeah. So ultimately, with 15 1 to 2 hour bite-sized sessions, your people will be able to go into a training session. We usually run them over at 11 o'clock or lunchtime. So again, it feels like upskilling. It's not mandatory. It's something we say people can sign up to, so they feel that training is being offered. So many people feel fatigued by the constant Zoom stuff. So it's very much about people choosing to want to be better at what they do. And ultimately, they walk away with 2 or 3 skills that they can put into place straight away that will help them have good habits and improve, whether it's mental health, whether it's timekeeping, whether it's communication. Communication is a big issue right now. Some people came into remote working being really mindful of their position, how they communicate when they do a meeting. People are fatigued, you know, and it shows in their eyes. They're glazing over. They've got out of good habits. So some of it is learning new tips and tricks. Some of it is coaching and people thinking, yeah, I knew that, but I'd forgotten it. And some of it is collaborative. Sometimes you just create a forum and people bring their ideas to the table and share. So very powerful, very useful, and very cost effective. Because
I don't know what the order is. The order is it's habits that create behaviors, that create character, that create discipline. That's the sort of order of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And for an employer, especially people leader, we have both business owners and heads of HR or HR business partners in here thinking about, what challenges are coming to them, what's taking up time for them, what are the repeat challenges that keep coming. So when there's something like that, it's really nice now. I get LinkedIn emails saying, tell me about this, or what could you do in this space? For one of my clients this week, I'm actually going to do them a grid of remote working and how to structure people working in and out the office. So literally a tick list of questions. How does remote working affect your business? How does remote working affect your team, your division, and yourself? Because you can't decide when you're going to be in and out of an office, or a manager can't decide when their people are going to be in and out the office based on a matrix. You can, and I think that would be very simple. But what you might miss out on is working to people's strengths. But what you also don't want to do is to put everything on one employee who comes in every day, and then the one working from home never has to go in, and all of a sudden starts to create a divide amongst your people. So it's a little bit of a matrix that people can use as almost like a flow chart of how to get their teams aligned for hybrid working, which I think in a month everyone's going to start doing a lot more of. So,
hasn't there? I know our chat is quite quiet at the moment. So if you have any issues at the moment, like specific difficult situations that you're not sure how to handle, or if you're having some training issues right now, put them in the chat. Let us know what you're dealing with right now so we can hit it head on.
Well, absolutely. The best sessions are guided by yourself, and we've had some really, really busy ones. But hopefully, if you're listening intently and you don't feel like you want to put anything on the chat box, you can message Tosh and I afterwards. We actually share our mobile numbers as well. You can even WhatsApp us. We make ourselves available to answer questions. But what we've been talking about today in terms of training and upskilling actually leads to that final area that we want to cover today, which is about low motivation. Low engagement, which leads to low productivity, which then leads to low job satisfaction. And ultimately, again, the talent that you spent all this time and money attracting, retaining, developing walks out your door. And that is not what, organizations want. So part of our final section today for the next 10 minutes or so is we're going to be talking about what you can be doing to maximize productivity in your world. So what's your take on this, Tosh? Where would you start?
I think, Misha, it depends on the size of the firm and what you can do and how organized you can be. So, for example, I'm a firm of seven lawyers. So it's a fairly small team. So we have lots of touch points. We're on Teams regularly. I come to speak to them every day. It's not like Big Brother. We can all see each other, so you don't feel like you're alone. We have touch points in the day which are not work related, just to chat or whatever else it is. I've sent them all of my staff Mother's Day flowers to their mums without telling them, saying, look, love working with Mark or whoever the employee is at that time. And it's just nice engagement, right? Because my view on these things is let's say you're working full time, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you're more with these people than you are with your friends and family. So if you don't love it, go and do something else. So if you're not motivated, or the people aren't driving you, or you don't feel like you want to be there, money's important, but it's not the most important thing. It's that engagement that makes people, when they get up and they want to go to work, they want to meet their work colleagues, they want to give value, and they're aligned in the same way that you are. That's where you feel a sense of fulfillment or a sense of purpose in what you're doing. Otherwise, what we're getting up for?
Yeah, well, I agree with all of that. So for our audience today, my gift to you is to say that whether you're a big organization, you're a small organization, there is a blueprint. And that's what we work with our clients to do, is to give them a checklist of what you need to be thinking about. And whether you're 10 or 100 or 1,000, actually that tick list of what's important to think about is the same. So first and foremost, are you looking at that person as an individual? Have you considered them when you've brought them into your world, not only on their skills, but their fit into your organization? So straight away, has that person become part of your tribe? Because if you're speaking the same language and you're recognizing behaviors and values that are valued and celebrated, then all of a sudden, even the newest person who doesn't know how to do their job will be adding value. So that is the first thing. So make sure your work culture is strong, and make sure you look at your people as individuals, not just as fitting that role in the company. Secondly, it's really important. We've already talked about training. So don't just bring them in, help them as an individual, know that you're there on the journey with them for success and happiness. I talk about success and happiness in equal measures in my organization. And for that reason, we have what we call the life triangle. And we talk to our employees about the fact that their rewards and benefits package is going to be built to when they can ultimately have a third of their time on themselves, a third of their time in their job, and a third of their time with their family and loved ones. So all of a sudden, our day off after birthdays or closing over Christmas is all around that family time. Our time spent doing exercise in the park or giving them a longer lunch break to go out and go for a walk or a well-being walk or a group training session is all around the me time. And then the training and upskilling, the commissions and the bonuses is all around their career. So that's how we've created a structure that employees feel treated as individuals, supported as individuals, but also recognized as important members of the team. So first and foremost, get that right from the offset. Get the job description right. Have what good looks like really clearly defined. Don't just talk about that job description on day one. Get that job description becoming part of your monthly review. You know, in appraisals, you should cover every area and score yourselves. But monthly, you can bring up one section. Either it's an area that's a challenge or an area that you want to, celebrate. You want to talk about the wins. So recognizing positive behavior and giving magic moments and feedback is key. People want to know how they're doing. And if they're doing badly and you don't tell them, that's going to be bad for them. They're going to feel unsupported. If they're doing well and you share that with them, then they recognize that they're going to want to do more. Who doesn't want a compliment, right? So
I think it's right, and it's understanding what motivates them, what their needs are. I did this thing, I mentioned it on a previous session that we did, which was I got all my staff to write their bucket list. Now I can't fulfill every dream, but certainly some of them, actually they're not that difficult. One of them was to do a course on yoga. Well, how easy is that to do, to get something? So as a birthday gift or for no reason, just get it because it's on a list. So it's that buy-in that you feel like your employer's got your back, that they actually give a damn. It really makes the difference rather than just go and work, clock in, clock out. And you know what? It depends on the culture. Depends what it is. If you're in certain organizations, they don't have that. And they don't need that, but certainly if you're in a place where you love working, that's the right way.
I think most organizations now, whether they have a business plan or a plan for the month, especially over a year, they will look at people's business objectives and their personal objectives. For us, we do you've done the bucket list, we do the 6 month, 1 year, 5 year plan. We do almost like a mood board of it. Show us a picture of what you want to achieve at 6 months, what you want to achieve by a year and 5 years. And everyone has their plan. What's really nice about that is when you're rewarding, rather than just giving somebody an Amazon voucher, why not give them a voucher towards one of their objectives, making it personal, making it a point of recognition, but people feel seen and they will want to work harder for you, and morale will lift, productivity will lift, and everyone will bring each other along on the journey, because that's what you want as an employer, isn't it? Not a micromanaging environment, but an environment of empowerment.
What would you say about a client of mine, which will remain unnamed, that doesn't care about that stuff? They are a trading company, so it's about money. And you know what? It's a real cutthroat kind of environment. It's not one that I'm going to help them be able to change. They're not even interested in it. And everybody in there knows that's the score and that's the way it comes. It's a little bit like when you watch like Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen, What is he talking about that for? He thinks he's motivating them by, riling them up and so forth. But you they're in that environment for a reason. I'm not sure they would get the same buy-in with I know this is what we do, but what do you say about a company like that? How do you change that? Or why would you need to really? They've got a choice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. People need to go in with their eyes open. So part of this hiring process and part of the sort of culture is there's no right or wrong for two people choosing each other. When an organization chooses an individual and the individual chooses them, as long as they're honest about who they are, what the culture's like and what they're going to bring to the table, nothing wrong with that. Everyone goes in with their eyes open. It's when one says they're one thing and then demonstrates another that mistrust and people fall out of it.
I agree with that.
So what I would say is that people that go and work in an environment like that have their personal objectives aligned with what that value is. There's still an exchange of value, right? It's just different. So,
whatever they're prepared to put up with for whatever that value is or that objective, I suppose.
What I would say again, and what we've been doing with our clients, especially at this time, is doing a lot of testing. So first of all, doing surveys, check in with your people, find out how they're doing, get a temperature of the room, and then use those surveys to deliver what's needed. I would say do personality profiling, understand what makes your people tick. Again, people do PPI, what I call personality profiling, PPI, when they hire. But actually, you can do it once a year before appraisal, just to establish, has this person evolved? Have things changed? So I think PPIs are really important. Also, we offer training around, we offer testing around how people learn and how people fit into a team. Because again, you're going to get the loud one that always wants to be leading, and you're going to get the one that actually wants to be the one that goes away, organizes it, and does the project management of it. And if you put the wrong people in the wrong role, it's going to create challenge. So understand your people and find out their motivators. We have a test that looks at 9 different motivators, from whether they are somebody who's a builder motivated by money and material satisfaction, or friendship, or mastery of their role. There's 9 different motivators. So we've got tests. As hard as managing personalities and understanding people's motivations can be, it's not subjective. It can be very black and white if you apply a testing process to give you insights. So
before I started to apply these things, I used to think, God, I haven't got the time. I think of an old thing one of the partners of my old law firm said, because I'm so busy, I want to kill myself, but I haven't got the time. And it's a bit like that. Oh, gosh, it's all nice doing all that stuff. But God, isn't that a lot of heavy lifting? I mean, I've learned that it's worth it. It's certainly worth it to take that.
When you know it's working, when you have very little time spent dealing with people challenges, and you have more time spent training, upskilling, doing the L&D piece, doing the bit around what next, how can we take this forward? You've actually got the headspace to look forward rather than firefight on the floor. And that's what I love doing for our clients, is working with them to get to that point. And you always have to work on it. It's not like we've got there, so we stop. It's continually ongoing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If you spend the time on getting the infrastructure and the environment right, the people problems will diminish, and your time will be spent in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. And wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just? Well, hopefully somebody, take at least some of the tips that we put there.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants us to go over it, let us know, give us a ring. As I say, our details are available to you. You will have got our email, the fact that you've registered on this, right? And please let us know what matters to you. When we call you up or email us, I'd really like a topic on this. We'll even fast forward it to something for next week. We're doing diversity next week, aren't we?
And actually, we started typing in about diversity in the poll. I've just published the poll, actually. Not going to put you on the admin next week, Tosh. Tosh and I are covering diversity and equality in the workplace. It's come in second on our poll behind mental well-being, but we know that it is one of the top 3 strategies that businesses are looking to spend time on going forward, because it's proven that a diverse and inclusive workforce are more productive. Businesses with a diverse and inclusive workforce are more successful. And for me, I am trying to really talk to business leaders about making their senior team reflect diversity and inclusion. So I'm getting much more involved in senior hires, because I want organizations to start to see the benefit of a diverse and inclusive senior leadership team, because if you get that right, everything flows from there. So next week, Tosh and I are going to walk you through what not only a diverse and inclusive workforce looks like, the legalities around it, but also how you get there. So we're excited about that, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And from my point of view, I always want people to know how to avoid the potential pitfalls of not getting it right. So we'll be going through all those things next week as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you everyone for joining. We are close to 40 minutes. We hope the session's been useful to you. Tosh, as always, it's been a pleasure. And
again next week.
Look forward to seeing everyone at 11 a.m. next Thursday.
Bye everyone. Bye. See you later.
Bye, Tosh.